TGIF. We have assumed control. We have assumed control. Thank goodness it is Friday. I don't know about you, but I'm happy it's Friday. You know, there's a lot of things that we deal with every day in our lives that are kind of frustrating, and work is one of them, right? You got to show up every day, you got responsibilities, and oftentimes we kind of feel like a lot of, what we do isn't really either effective, or in the end of the day, we're just not really, achieving anything for ourselves sometimes, right? Weekends, if you don't work on them, often, give us that little bit of respite we need to kind of go on and start the fight all over again. At least it does for me, at any rate. And that doesn't mean I don't work on weekends. I pretty much work 7 days a week, probably 17 or 18 hours a day. But on the weekends, I don't get up. I get up every morning at 4 o'clock. And so I sleep late on Saturday morning, which is usually about 5 o'clock, which my body clock says, you're up, and I'm up. And then I have a cup of coffee, which I drink big cups of coffee. And I'm going to enjoy one right now, in fact. I love coffee, at least in the morning. And then I'm for sure up, right? Because when you drink a big cup of coffee like that, or you hit your second cup of coffee, you are not sleeping for a while. Even when I want to go back to sleep, I can't. I almost never take a nap, but there are times when I would love to, but it's got to be pretty late in the afternoon for all that caffeine to exit. But then again, that's just the way it goes. So I don't want to bore you with my antics, but Fridays are kind of a nice break for people. A lot of us look at Friday and say, thank goodness it's here. Thank gracious we've got this chance to take a deep breath and separate ourselves from the rough and tumble of work. And as we get closer and closer to spring, I think America has collective cabin fever. I mean, this has been, for the nation, the worst winter we have experienced in a long, long time. I mean, when you've got frozen fountains in Louisiana and Florida, things are ugly. We've had massive costs associated with it in terms of the heat bills that have built up and all that. So I can't wait for a TGIF and a beautiful spring day. And man, I just need that energy jolt, that you get from a beautiful spring day. That's what I need. And you can't even go south for a vacation because it's just as cold there as it is up north. All right. Let's get on to our topic this morning, which is that the libtards of the world are realizing that they have opened Pandora's box. Now, tax exemptions, and you probably heard me go on the other day about 501c3 groups, right? Those are the religious groups, which are which really burn my shorts because they are willing to sacrifice and we're talking churches now. They're willing to sacrifice their congregations to retain that tax exemption. Yes, not everyone, most. And I hate you for it. The real problem with this 501c4 is that it allows corporations to pour, we're talking, folks, vast amounts of money. When I hear a guy like Karl Rove, the architect, The architect of what? The demise of the country? You got to be kidding me. When I hear a guy like Karl Rove come out there and brag about the fact that his tax-exempt organization and super PAC called Crossroads spent $80 million, it makes me want to vomit. Why? Well, not that I'm jealous, but it cost me about $1,000 a month out of my pocket to do this stupid show. And I think to myself, he's using money to bend people's minds to his will. And, I mean, how many eyes could I open to that manipulation with a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of that? Here's the problem. The Libs kicked this crap off a long time ago. They were the ones who fought for it originally, and they've been using the unions in this format for decades. They use collected money from the unions as a perfect example, and they get the unions to collect dues from these people and then apply those towards their political objectives. Then the unions get payback from the politicians as soon as they get into office, always in the form of more benefits to the unions, more subsidies, more strength and power. Now, it hasn't really helped over the course of the last few decades for unions, but that's not for want of trying. I mean, unions in the United States are losing their power. I mean, they used to be 11% of the workforce. They're now like 5% or something, 6%, maybe lower. The point is, the Libs started this. And like Frankenstein, you know, they cobbled the monster together from parts. This started with, you know, the unions and other methodologies which they were using. Churches, unions. Then they came up with this idea called 501c4, and they went and bent the arm and the ear of the IRS and got them to accomplish that for them. Then they went to the judicial, and they got the Supreme Court to agree with their principle of how can we betray the Republic using tax-exempted monies and this hidden money that we don't have to reveal who the donors are. So everybody can play in secret. Remember, by the way, something, that secrets are the place and the role and used most often and heavily by tyrants. When you hear President Obama saying, well, it's a national secret, national security, secret. Let me tell you something. There's nothing secret about the vast majority of the things that they classify as secret. In fact, lately in the media, you'll be hearing terms like overclassification, because this stuff really isn't secret. Perfect example is Fast and Furious. How did that become a national security secret? It's not a national security secret. They're just covering up for dirty Eric Holder and dirty Barack Obama and the minions and the knuckleheads and those little sycophantic Hitlerites in the ATF. The point is, now that the Republicans have figured out how to garner vast sums of money, I show you a picture of Karl Rove here and him bragging about $80 million. I don't have a picture of Karl Rove, but you'll just have to kind of use your imagination. They don't like it. And so they're going in now and they're going to get the IRS to change the rules for their benefit and to change the rules in such a way that all of their traditional methodologies and methods aren't affected, but anything that these conservative Tea Party groups and Karl Rove, and now I'm not putting Tea Party and Karl Rove in the same boat by any stretch of the imagination, but they don't like the Tea Party's use of it. And so they're determined to end their ability to use the same tactic that they learned from the Libs. This jumps back to the first segment I did of how to identify a statist in your midst. And I'm going to read you point number 19 again because it's exactly perfectly suited for this. They've perfected the fine art of the double standard, exempting their own from the very actions they criticize in others. Boom. I mean, you hear that perfect swack as you hit the ball, and it sails off straight and true. The truth is, if we all had a lobbyist, if we all had unlimited funds to pump into our own political ideology, the rules would be different. The game would be played differently. But I know that there are, 500,000, maybe 400,000, because there's always the upper echelon, jerks. But I know that there are 500,000 soldiers who can't afford a union to speak on their behalf when their pay gets cut, when they are charged for their own health care, for an injury they have sustained while fighting a war on behalf of the country. Huh? You got to be kidding me. So you mean to tell me you're going to put this guy in harm's way based on his membership in the armed forces, and then when he gets injured doing what you told him to do, you're going to charge him? I know that the average rank and file American doesn't have a lobbyist to protect and help bribe a politician, because that's what it is, to accomplish our interests. Money is the root of all evil in politics and usually in life. But in politics, it is extraordinarily egregious. And here's why. Its evil spreads over all of us like rising floodwaters. Because when these people accomplish their own personal agendas, or which generally involves them being enriched or empowered or placed in a position of greater authority, it always comes at a derogation of your rights, your liberties, your freedoms, your money. Always, without fail. And we can't afford the lobbyist to go in there and buy the influence we need to get the right things done for the country. That's why you look around you and the entire nation is buried under tyranny, treason, betrayal, lies, corruption. Because we can't afford to bribe our politicians to do the right thing. What a sad commentary. The people who created this monster, who patiently but with malice aforethought sewed the monster together, they are concerned now that the monster might breed. And if it does, they won't have control of its offspring. The courts in this country have completely abdicated any responsibility that they have towards us by saying that, or justice or liberty or freedom or the Constitution, by saying that corporations have the same rights as persons. And so therefore, corporations who have an enormous amount of money that they can toss around, as opposed to you or me or Charlie or Bob or Sally. Their ability to influence things using that money is acceptable as an individual right of free speech. Bunk! You can give a corporation the right of free speech when you can put that corporation in prison. Oh, that's right. We can't put a corporation in prison. All we can do is fine it. You see, that's the problem with the whole premise of allowing corporations to have free speech and allowing corporations to have personhood status. We don't give unborn babies personhood status, but you're going to give IBM and Microsoft and Google personhood status? You've got to be flippin' kidding me. We allow personhood status for corporations. They, in turn, take vast amounts of money and they infringe on our Bill of Rights so that they can have theirs. Remember the first law and rule of a republic, which is that government must operate under the premise that it is going to protect the individual, the smallest minority of one, from the whims of the majority. In a pure democracy, the majority rules. 10 of us living on an island, 7 people say, here's how it's going to work. You 3 work hard, but we get to share all the stuff that you produce while we sit around and drink pina coladas on the beach. Them's the rules now. In a republic, 7 of you can say, we collectively agree that we can have the stuff that those 3 hard workers produce. And there is a stoppage that says, no, you can't. You cannot take 9 people and derogate the rights of 1 under the premise or the argument that we have the right to take the life, the liberty, the property, the labor of that 1 for the benefit of all. And yet, we see every day that the idea that your rights cease, your right to swing your arms around flailing wildly cease when your arm and your hand come in contact with my nose. Right? The idea that corporations can employ money to make it legal for you to flail your arms about and come in contact with my nose, and there's not much I can say about it. And the idea that courts would approve that and grant a fictitious entity that does not technically, physically live and exist, and grant them the same rights as you, is a crime. It's a crime against nature, to be perfectly blunt. Think about that. It's a crime against nature. You know why? Because life is a natural thing. A corporation is not. It's a figment of someone's imagination. It only exists in the subjective. And to say that a corporation speaks for its, employees, investors? No, it really doesn't. I speak only for me. You speak only for you. Suddenly we've got this entity that says, but I can speak for millions, and my voice outweighs yours because I've got not only the power to speak for millions, but the money to make it happen. The truth is, unless we get big money and lobbying out of the political world, and lobbying is bribery. You can call it anything you want, but the truth is you need to start using the word la-bribing or bribery. I don't care how you use it. But the truth is, it is exactly what's wrong with America and our political world. Unless we get rid of lobbying, under a new constitutional republic, it should, would, and can, and will be a crime punishable by exile. Exile. Go look up the original 13th Amendment. Please try. Just take 2 minutes. Type into your browser the original 13th Amendment. Read the information about it. It'll blow you away. Did you know that we had a constitutional amendment up until I think it was 78 or something like that. I think it was 1878 where they kind of quietly removed it and made the 14th the 13th and the 15th the 14th and so on. And under that it said that if you accepted a title as a foreign title, including Esquire, for all your lawyers out there, you effectively had removed yourself from the nation. And that you are, for all intents and purposes, exiled and you lose your citizenship. And that should be the penalty for monetary bribe. If you represent a collective group of individuals, like we do when we're trying to go get the Ozark Scenic National Riverways back, and we go over to our elected representative in Washington, D.C., who's Jason Smith, and we say, Jason Smith, you represent us, you're in the area, and you cover the area where we are. We want that land back from the federal government. We want it returned back to the state of Missouri so that we're in control of it and we can maintain it. And if you don't, come November, we will remember your name and we will remove you from office. That's a perfectly legitimate operation. It's a perfectly legitimate use of our power. However, if we go to him and say, in order to make this happen or not make this happen, we're not only watching you and we're going to either elect or unelect you in November, but here's $30,000 to sink into your re-election campaign. Rules have been crossed, the line has been broken, and whether or not you consider it a legal crime or not, it is a crime against man, nature, humanity, our government, our Constitution, and it is treason. Because you have caused that individual to manipulate and modify their vote based upon money which works against the best interests of the United States of America. And for that, you should lose your citizenship and be exiled. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I am the host of this program every day. I appreciate you joining with us. We will be back on Monday morning, TGIF. Please communicate with me and Mike at americasvoicenow.org and find us at americasvoicenow.org on the web and also at facebook.com/America's Voice Now and youtube.com/America's Voice Now.